let's go. Let's get started with this second debate.
Okay, hi everyone. I am going to start giving you a brief introduction to why my group is think that all drugs should be legalized. First, I would like to say that the first information that I'm going to give you it's based on the information recollected by the Newport Institute. This institute is specialized in the drug consumption and politics related to that. And here we found that in countries that have introduced alternative drug policies, such as decriminalization of all drugs or regulation of adult cannabis and other drugs, crime and addiction did not increase, and there were important benefits. And there's also Thornbridge Foundation that is specialized in drugs and consumption, argue that incarceration it is not an effective deterrent to drug use. And decriminalization allows the marijuana industry to be regulated like tobacco and alcohol. And this can be used to other type of drugs. In addition, they say that more people can receive treatment if revenue and taxes from legal marijuana sales are funneled into prevention and recovery programs. And this is also something that have possibilities to be for the use of all the type of drugs. And also, I would like to say that based on the research done in the military university, Colombia is, we all know, is a nation severely affected in its security by the problem of drugs, and the proposal to legalize the consumption of illicit drugs will diminish the ways which the mafias control the market, and the reconsideration of the counter-narcotics policies of the country, proposes decriminalizing the cultivation of cannabis, coca, and opium poppy. And this is like a one step forward is the decriminalization of the personal dose, placing Colombia as a pioneer in establishing an alternative legal framework to the anti-drug laws. Thank you.
All right. Let's hear the introduction now of the against team.
Okay, welcome to this debate. We are argue about why all drugs shouldn't be legalized. So let's first define some important concepts. The highest drug mortality comes from legal drugs. So the moment you legalize a drug, you will increase the number of people who are exposed and therefore increase the negative consequence of its use. So when you legalize, you create an industry whose intention is to make money selling those drugs. And how do you sell it? Mainly inciting people to take them and tempting them to take large amounts. So legalization of drugs could result in an overwhelming need of rehabilitation centers. So this thing which could be catastrophic to our economy, considering also the human damage in terms of life lost and addiction issues. In addition, the doors will be open for individuals older than 18 years old to abuse for heroin, fentanyl, crystal methamphetamines, and also pharmaceuticals. For more, legal drugs like alcohol and nicotine provide good models for legalization. So let's continue with the arguments.
All right. So let's hear the first argument for the in favor team.
Okay. Well, I would like to refute what says Natalia about the if legalized drugs will highly more deaths or so overdoses, because we have the example of Portugal, since it discriminalized all drugs in 2001. Has been dramatic drops in overdoses, HIV infections, and drug-related crime. Um, in other hand, when drugs are illegal, the government cannot enact standards of quality, purity, or potency. Consequently, street drugs are often contaminated or extremely potent, causing diseases and sometimes the death of those who use them. For example, unsterilized needles are known to transmit HIV among intravenous drugs users because drug users commonly share these kind of needles because in countries where is prohibited all drugs also is prohibited have like this drug of paraphernalia like the needles, so it's difficult to get. And for that, for example, in Portugal, they provide addicts with what they need for safer consumption, like clean needles, tinfoil, and physiological support. Um, each year, they help about 1,600 users. And also, if drugs are legalized, people with addiction problems would have access in an easier way to treatments that will help them. And in addition, the government will have data about the consumers to treat future problems. For example, again in Portugal, drug dealers still go to prison, but users caught with no more than 10 days worth of drugs, even heroin, are typically sent to see a group of composed to a doctor, a lawyer, and a social worker. And during this meeting, the person have like access to information about what treatments they can get and what medical services are available to them. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, Laura. Let's hear the rebuttal of the against team.
Okay, so I would like to say that according Laura said about the increase of the consumption or something about that, I would like to say that WHO report indicates that the consumption of tobacco that nowadays is legalized kill 100 million people in the 20th centuries, which currently kill more than 5 billion each year. So that's right, that assumption grows, and projections are that tobacco will kill 1 billion in the 21 centuries. So in fact, if we legalize some drugs, the trend is to grow. So in that sense, is not quite accurate your idea. So I just want to mention that. So one of our main ideas in the effect about legalization drug is the effect in public health, even more for youth. Sorry, young people are surrounded by pro-drugs messages nowadays through social media or at schools or at the universities, and they want to experience without realizing the very real risks and consequences that come with drug use. So a big question or an important question is, what are the dangers of use drugs? So I want to let's start with marijuana. So along with lung damage from smoke inhalates, this drug can trigger mental illness in teens who are predisposed to thought disorders schizophrenia or psychosis, and others. And in addition, teens who use marijuana daily are more likely to experience depression prior age 21, which in some cases turn into suicide. Continued with the cocaine, this drug can develop mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, or even paranoia, and panic attacks, and related to physical health and for the fact that it is highly addictive. And continued use of cocaine can cause several problems, including feeling to rot down, difficulties to sleep, and loss of brain cells. Apart from those health problems, using cocaine can lead to finance and social problems. So, now the opioids, which are prescribed by healthcare professionals to reduce pain, in some cases have dependency and addiction risk. These problems are higher in somebody abuse, sorry, if somebody abused the medicine, and the abuse can include taking too much medicine, taking someone else's medicine, or even worse, overdose. So in that sense, I would like to mention three facts which are important according to the UN Office of Drugs Crimes World Drug Report in 2022, sorry. First, through the legalization of cannabis in North America appears to have increased daily use, particularly among young adults. It also caused a report surge among people with psychiatric disorders, increased suicides, and hospitalizations. Second, one, uh, 11.2 million people were estimated to inject drugs, around half of whom were living with hepatitis C, 1.4 million with HIV, and 1 million with both. And finally, in the United States and Canada, overdoses deaths predominantly driven by an epidemic of non-medical use of sorry, fentanyl continue to break records. Preliminary estimates in United States point to more than 107,000 drugs overdoses deaths in 2021, up from nearly 92,000 in 2020. So, to close that argument and that idea, and after reviewing all those risk and alarming trends, it is worrying to think of the total opening of the consumption of any drug on the market. This would imply complete exposure to the population, putting a fundamental right to social life in complete danger. Although we have the right to express ourselves freely, we must also ensure the well-being of each person. So, thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. Let's now hear from the for team, the next argument for the in favor team.
Okay, so first I want to say Juanita describes very well what the negative effects of drug use are, but we believe that is not the drug per se that makes people addicted. I mean, only a small percentage of consumers ever become addicted, and there is a social and psychological factors that determine addiction more than the properties of the drugs. Therefore, for us, it is important to change the approach. So I will explain myself. If drugs were legalized, it would save a lot of money that could be better spent. It is not it's not a secret that the wars on drugs has failed, not only because consumption has been maintained, but it has been increasing, and the variety of drugs on the market is increasing as well. At the same time, gigantic or enormous, better, amounts of money have been invested on this that have almost been thrown away. So the billions that are spent into this work would be better spent on education, prevention, and treatment. Would it be better to control those substances, tax them, limit their ability to minors, as it happens with alcohol, rather than criminalize a huge segment of the population? According to a bulletin made in 2018 by Jeffrey Miron, director of the economics department at Harvard University, drug legalization could generate up to 106.7 billion in annual budgetary gains for federal, state, and local governments. So those gains would come from two main sources: decreases in drug enforcement spending and increases in tax revenue. So a good example of this, again, is Portugal, who have decriminalized all drugs. They have taken the money they spend on enforcing prohibition and instead investing in the education, rehabilitation, and reintegration of drug users. So the country made financial investments in harm reduction and treatment services. Some researches in the United States shows a dollar spent on treatment saves more than a dollar in crime reduction. So another benefit could be is that police have a lot of their budget and time reallocated to pursue serious crime. Right now, police forces over the war dedicate the great majority of their time on hunting down drug users and low-level dealers. So if drugs were legal, this wouldn't be a problem.
All right, so let's hear now from the next participant from the against team.
Okay, hello. Sorry I couldn't fix my camera, but well, by adding taxes, what you will do is just that people will still prefer buying in the black market because its price will be higher. For example, in Canada, the retail price of legal cannabis increased from $7.49 per gram to, in October 2018, to $8.86. Meanwhile, the illegal price is like $5. So, what if you add taxes? What you are doing is that people will still prefer buying in the black market. Legalizing drugs doesn't mean that you are going to end narco traffic or criminalization. It could be still there. For example, today, 75% of cannabis consumers in Canada buy it on the black market, according to official figures, and the financial results of those who invest are doubly successful. So you may say that legalizing drugs could help the economy, but what we have seen is at the beginning it works, but in a large term period it's decreasing because of its high prices. Also, what I want to talk is if you legalize cannabis is a gateway drug. So normalizing the use of drugs will make people think they are good, and they will ignore some of the effects. For example, Early exposures to cannabinoids in adolescents, rodents decrease their reactivity of brain dopamine rewards centers later in adulthood. This means if you are a consumer in your teenage, you may be more likely to, in your adult, try other drugs like heroin, because you will like to find a higher effect. And yes, and another thing is, as you mentioned, the addiction is a psychological aspect. So that there are some studies that shows that yes, there are people who can live a normal life using drugs, but that doesn't mean that there are all other persons who suffer from this. So you can ignore this problem by saying it benefits some others, which in statistics we can see that the persons who it affects are more. And a lot of people who start consuming these drugs is because they feel lonely or depression or anxiety. And the studies has shown that when people consume drugs, being depressed or with mental problems, they are more likely to be addicts. And yes, I think that's my argument.
All right, Juan, thank you very much. Then that's it's the turn now for the conclusion already. Yes, the conclusion of the in favor team.
Well, then I'm going to make the brief conclusion of why we think all the drugs should be legalized. First, I would like to say that in countries that have introduced alternative drug policies, such as decriminalization of all drugs or regulation of adult use cannabis, crime and addiction did not increase, and there were important benefits. And I also would like to say that drug addiction already has a stigma attached to it. And people are scared to get help out of fear of what others might think, and they will continue using drugs just to feel better or normal. And this is a part of the addiction cycle. The body becomes dependent on drugs to function normally. And we have to remember that drug addicts are not consciously bad people. They are affected by a chronic mental health disease. And while law enforcement strategies are important to curtail drug trafficking and stop the illegal production of drugs, those that are battling addiction need professional treatment to reduce dependency, and decriminalization and regulation are the first steps towards legalization. And I would also like to say that being legal, it doesn't mean that it's going to be promoted. For example, we have the case of alcohol and tobacco, as I said at the beginning. Of course, they are legal, but they are not promoted because, as we all know, since we are a little, we are aware of the danger of those type of substances. And the case of saying that all drugs should be legal doesn't mean that we are saying that all drugs should be promoted. And that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Sophia, very much. We're now going to hear the conclusion of the against team.
Argument because when I talk was for the introduction. So okay, I might add this example. A study found that the introduction of a ban of smoking in workplaces or public service reduce overall rates of smoking, particularly among higher smokers, like 25 or more cigarettes a day. So whose cigarettes consumption 6 months after the ban had fallen over 25%. So providing prohibiting drug use can be thought of a reducing of occasional consumption to zero. Supporting this, in 2010, another study asked 600 young person between 18 to 13 years old, whether they will use some cannabis if it were legal. About 80% of these people say they would use. So explaining the basis of this calculation, some professionals have predicted dramatic increases in the number of people taking drugs and becoming addicted. So these increases will translate into considerable direct and indirect cost to society, including higher public health spending, like result of drug overdose, and also fetal deformities and other drug accidents like auto accidents or loss of productivity at work and desertion, and also on job accidents. To say nothing about educational deterioration. So to reiterate my point of view, what would our country be like if all drugs were made legal and open to purchase by all individuals or older than 80 years? So I contend that a significant number of individuals have a propensity for addiction, and that legalization will drastically increase the number of addiction in our country. So thank you. This is my argument. So one could say the conclusion.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Juan. Are you there? It seems.
Sorry, I was
Okay.
muted.
Okay.
Okay. So drug addicts are still a minority compared what it could be if drugs were legal. So we think it is easier and better to treat this person now that there are not that many. And if the drugs like were legal, it could be an epidemic of these drug addicts. So it doesn't mean that we are going to give the back to drug addicts. We know it is a health issue, is considered an issue, but yes, there are a lot of consequences of these substances. So we believe it is better to be illegal. Wait. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yes, practically we be showing the statistics we said, and the examples of countries that have legalized drugs. There are not concrete like results that can give us the decision to say that legal drugs are good. I still believe that it is easier to control it being illegal, and you could say that you are not going to promote this, but at legalizing these drugs, you are going to normalize them. So if maybe a kid, when he watch his dad or a familiar smoking, he will probably think that it's not that bad. So as if they see drugs. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Juan. That concludes our second debate. So thank you very much to all the participants. Please give them a hand.